Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, it's a Sunday morning. Here I am, Alan Cox with Understanding Spirit Radio Show. The sun is shining and all is well with the world. Well, that's what I tell you. But I'm hoping it's all well with my good friend David Parry up there in the beautiful Isle of Bute. Good morning, David.
Morning, Alan. I think the world's going through quite a rocky patch at the minute, actually. But yes,
I think it is
always accentuate the positive and onwards and upwards, as they say.
indeed. Um, uh, Last week was the OCAC Synod meeting in Bolton. I was due to go up there, and instead I spent the Saturday morning on the M6 hard shoulder, so I never got there. But you did, David, and from what I can gather, it was a really good event.
What wild horses would not have stopped me getting there. Because, as you say yourself, OCAC, our wonderful old Catholic church, is full of wonderful, wonderful, good-hearted, beautiful, loving people. Which is a rarity in these circles, sadly, but it's true of us and us lot. I wasn't that well at all. Sometimes my mobility and my age catch
No,
up
you
with
weren't.
me. And for various reasons, I mean, the journeys from hell, I mean, British Rail might think they're doing a great job, but they're not. British, journeys from hell for older people mean you get ill. It doesn't mean it's just claim it back with, oh, send in a claim, which is their attitude nowadays for poor
Yeah.
service. Actually, with older people, it can make you quite poorly, which they don't want to even think about. The journey down there, I mean, anywhere from the Hebrides is a long way. So the journey down there, I hadn't been feeling 100%
Yes.
anyway before I went, but the journey down there knocked the stuffing out of me. So I wasn't well. And we arrived on the Friday evening. The Saturday morning, my wonderful partner and I mean, we had to eat breakfast. So we arrived at the Saturday gathering, the OCAC gathering late, but there was nothing else we could do. I mean, human beings being human beings. And were made to feel welcome and at home, and everybody was being as you expect them to be in our wonderful little church, our lovely little church. Some very interesting talks. What Bishop Adrian had done, our wonderful presiding bishop, was get some interesting talks in the morning. I mean, these are professional meetings, so professional development. You could see it like that.
Yes.
People with an expertise in their area sharing their expertise with the group. We had a lovely lunch
Yes.
all together, which had been provided by the locals as a gift, and it was good, hearty northern food. Those sort of chunky sandwiches you get. I suppose I should say down south nowadays. You get up north, and delightful old cream
Yeah.
cakes. So I felt very at home. Old time cooking. We had a lovely lunch, and we had the ordinations and celebrations afterwards. My dear friend Michael Templeton was raised to be Episcopal vicar. I'm out with my different ranks this morning because we've had
Yes.
a difficult morning. Episcopal vicar of Scotland, for the simple reason us wicked Scots need someone with the authority on Bishop Adrian's behalf to say, yes, we do agree to that. No, we don't agree to do that, because it can't be him involved with everything. He's human. So
Yes.
that happened. And he led mass in the afternoon, and we managed to thank Bishop Adrian for all he
Wonderful.
did. I mean that none of that would be happening without him. None of it would have been happening without his endless energy for OCAC. And we I couldn't go to the pub. I mean, this is the lovely humanity of our lovely little church. They all go to the pub after the main meeting and just share. what in church circles you call fellowship together. In other words, you spend some time with your friends. We couldn't go to that because I wasn't well enough.
Yeah,
So my lovely partner and I went back to our hotel. But no, a fine time was had by all. You were very missed, and certainly
thank you.
we all think of you as a very great healer. We all think of you as a very gifted healer. So I think people were looking forward very much to talking to you and about your psychic work, and because lots of people are involved in that in OCAC. So, Bishop Paula in particular from from Holland. She was looking forward to swapping notes. I think Alison Dunlop in Scotland missed you and kept asking me, "Where's Alan? Where's Alan?" So it was a shame because you could have sort of because I know you. I mean, a lot of these people don't know you, and it would have been wonderful to have you say a few words about what you're up to and what you're doing. But always next year, Alan. This is my second synod. I've been
Of course,
delighted by both times I've been, and of course they are professional meetings. It's not just mates getting together; they're professional meetings. So it's the one time you have to catch
yes.
up with colleagues. There is no other time available. Weekly meetings simply cannot cover online weekly meetings simply cannot cover everything, and they don't build the human bonds that a church needs if it's going to be a proper church. Anyway, you are missed, and hopefully next year, fingers crossed.
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, the timing couldn't have been more worse. But that's how it was, and yeah, I had some nice comments off a couple of people, saying that, like you just said, how much I was missed and looking forward to meeting me and everything. So that's and Bishop Adrian sent me a nice private message as well. So yeah, it was
And,
from
Alan,
that point of view, it was good.
you're very much a part of us. You're a treasured member of the OCAC family. So, I think that's worth remembering. I mean, we're doing church properly. We're becoming family, and that's
Yes,
important to remember.
I think sometimes in this way life is at the moment, it can be very easy to forget the importance of comradeship, of being together with, when I say like-minded people, but I mean people who are non-judgmental, who can see different people's side of things, but still feel a closeness to the other person or other people. And sometimes we can get caught up in just everyday life that we can actually forget that. I think sometimes we have to be reminded the importance of fellowship.
Well, I think church in particular is unique in doing its job for once. It's not only a meeting of professionals, which is important in any profession, but it's also becoming coming
Yes.
together as another type of family. Families are great blessings. Our biological families are great blessings, but not the be all and end all. We think that at our peril because we're also individuals and we need to meet people, that speak to us as individuals. Oh, no, oh, that's uncle off again. Oh, that's granddad. And all of that's
Yeah.
part of family life, and
Yeah.
that's good. But it's not enough. It's not enough for a full, balanced human life, and that's where church really does step up to the mark and say, "Well, look, we're here for a different type of family connection. We're here for comradeship. We're here for friendship." And to help you flourish in a different way. What do you think, Alan?
I agree. And I was also thinking, just on a personal note with Anne and myself, we're very blessed where we're living now because we've got some lovely neighbours either side of us, and they and you kind of know that if they need help, we're there for them, and vice versa. And when I was in hospital, 5 years ago now, believe it or not, um, that our one set of neighbours, Paul Maxim next door, couldn't have been kinder and more supportive to Anne. It was absolutely incredible, and I think it means a lot. I mean, we've lived a place where neighbours were a problem, and you actually realise that when you live somewhere and you've got a support around you, that it shows the best of human nature, David.
Oh, fully agreed. And I mean, the shame on Britain. We're losing, and I think it's actually very complicated. I don't think it's simple, the reasons behind it. We're losing all of traditional community ties. America never had them in the first place. Its history is different, and its history is
Yes.
short. These things take centuries to evolve. And the fact that all of that has been cut back and it's been cut away, and nobody seems to be that bothered. I mean, the young generation don't seem to realise what they're missing, sadly. American caricatures, all busybodies snooping on you. Well, that may be the truth in America. That certainly wasn't the only truth about community here. The fact all that's missing. So who do you call on in a time of crisis when your family are not nearby? We're losing community. I mean, our wonderful island.
I was just about.
You were saying, Alan?
No, it's right. When you said, who are you going to call on? I was just about to say Ghostbusters.
Well, I could call them as well, but it's
film.
provided they're down the road and not a million miles away. I mean, human beings aren't simply animals in a family unit. I'm very aware of the great blessings of family. It can be a curse as well. We mustn't romanticize the family too much because it's still made up of
Yes.
human beings, and human beings aren't always working towards
Yes.
the good. But overall, it is a great blessing, and we need it. But it's still not the be all and end all. Human beings have different dimensions to them, and great. Your great aunt. Oh, you're good at this. You're good at that. Good on you. It's not enough for real accreditation, and it's not enough to stretch as a person. I mean, we're really blessed on this island with a community. I thought it was largely dead in Britain. But on our island, there's still a sense of community. And the fact it simply didn't exist, 40 years of London, and it didn't exist there in any way, shape, or form, including most of the churches I attended.
That's awful.
I mean, well, it's not only awful, it's a sad judgment on what we're doing to each other. Are we allowed to lead our own lives in our own way? Well, actually, I don't remember anyone recently in the last couple of 100 years saying no. There were people before that did say no. But you lead your own life, but your own life without love and companionship isn't much of a human life. What do you think, Alan?
No, I agree with you. They say no man is an island, and they okay. It's hard sometimes not to bring politics into it because there's always different viewpoints. But I always remember when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, and she said, "There's no such thing as society, just individuals." And when you think about it, that is that's such an awful statement. And the trouble is, the yuppies at the time, they took it on board, and this country became a lot more selfish over that period of time. And I think it's taken quite a few decades for people to perhaps start to realise that that isn't the way human beings should be towards one another. So it's amazing sometimes where one person can affect so many people just by opening their mouth and not thinking about what they're saying. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Sadly, in her case, I think she knew exactly what she was saying. A very complicated individual. Now, this will shock you. You better sit down, Alan. I'm going to say something nice about the Tories.
I am already.
I mean, she was
Right,
incredible.
okay.
Yeah,
Have you
I
put
could
your
be a,
medication this morning, David?
and I could be a turncoat. I could be as two-faced as the rest of them. She was a very, very complicated person, and her politics was actually surprisingly sophisticated. What she wanted to do was, to put it in a crude way, was Americanize Britain. That is an American attitude. That is what liberal thinking ended up becoming when it went to America. Liberal thinking started here. And the idea there was you can lead your own life here. You can do your own thing. What's wrong with that? And largely, I agree. I mean, what is wrong with that? But she felt that on a political level, we needed that attitude. We needed it, although she was a conservative, of course. Culturally, we had to be careful of what we were throwing away because we've got traditions, we've got ways of doing things, which I think she was right about. But in terms of economics, she was a total liberal. The marketplace must do what the marketplace does. The trouble with that is you either do that properly or you don't. America doesn't have all these weird things like a class system. Therefore, it sort of works better there than it does here. A kid growing up in Brixton knows full well he will never be king, he will never be queen, he will never be an aristocrat. So the whole incentive thing simply doesn't work here. The American model doesn't work here for very, very clear reasons. Something Liz Truss also forgot, but Margaret Thatcher was aware of that. I thought when she, towards the end of her career, was talking about the Thatcher legacy, that was actually quite a masterstroke. What she was saying was, we go this far, but no further. If we go any further than that, we're no longer British, and we're throwing away things that shouldn't be thrown away. A very clever woman. And I'm even going to break the rule and say something
Yeah.
nice about Boris Johnson. Again,
Right.
though I'm loath to admit it, a very complicated man. I mean, he was the one, when he first came into power, to say about Margaret Thatcher saying there is no society. He said Margaret Thatcher's wrong. And it took someone of his stature to turn that on his head. To turn that on its head. My trouble with Boris is that, I don't know, he says so many of the right things, then he does the reverse. So you're dealing, I think, with a very complicated man, and truly in a very complicated position. But the Tories, that class of
Yes.
Tory, you're looking at the old Tories. They had a feeling for Britain and the British, which they didn't mean on a racist level, which they didn't mean on an ethnic level. They were much more kind-hearted and open-minded than that. Anyone that doesn't think that just needs to look at what these people were saying. They weren't monsters. What they just didn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. That was their concern. And as a complete libtard, I'm a libtard. I confess it. I can't help respecting that and thinking they have a point. Because what happens if you do throw out the baby with the bathwater? You end up with nothing. You don't end up with an alternative. You end up with
Yeah.
nothing. No community, no people to call on, neighbours just waiting for you to trespass so they can gun you down. You don't end up with freedom, as both of those people realised. You end up with nothing. So we've got to be very careful about adopting not only Americanization in this country, but the simple reason it doesn't work here for very clear reasons. We've also got to be careful of how we get to the goals of freedom and individual expression without crashing the system along the way. What do you think, Alan? If you can even speak after that
Yeah.
allotment of time.
I was expecting Dan to be bringing you tablets along.
I'm
You
on my
missed your
tablets, don't
medication,
worry. I'm on my
David.
tablets.
Oh dear me, I like it. It's brilliant. I was just thinking, yeah, I see what you're saying, and I I find our politics very, very unnerving sometimes, very strange. Um, we've got the Labour Party in power, and they're promising the world, and who knows, they might keep to the promise. Can't be cynical all the time, but time will tell. But I'm just thinking about modern history, down the decades, where you've got a situation where, um, you to start off, you had no Labour Party, you just had the Liberals and the Conservatives, what they call them, what was it, the Whigs they call them. And then the Labour Party was formed. And then the Labour Party kind of, it's a new era, and they take over. And then after so many years, people think, oh, this is ridiculous. So the Conservatives come back in. And then it goes like this, doesn't it? Then I can remember the time in the 70s, the Labour were in, and Harold Wilson and Callaghan and all them, and 3-day working week and having power cuts and what have you. So then the Conservatives come in, and well, we just had 14 years of them. Okay, we went through a period of time where the Lib Dems coming with them, you know. But then it was inevitable after 14 years that the British public were going to vote for the other side, if you like. Uh, if, if you think about it, it was just obvious it was going to happen. And it begs the question that in another 10 years or another 15 years' time, we'll be going through the same thing. We just seem to go round and round in circles. And of course, now you've got Nigel Farage with the Reform Party coming in, and it's even been a bit of a revival for the Dems as well. So, but it just seems to be pretty much a merry-go-round, David. Um, we, we vote in our government, and they are the ones who are supposed to be the ones of all knowledge, and that you listen to them talk, they have the answers, and then time proves that they don't have the answer. Is that democracy? Some systems in the world are far worse off than we are. Not our systems aren't perfect by all means, but there are some countries where people are even frightened to vote or frightened not to vote, depending on the situation. So, have we got a fairly good deal, David, even with all its flaws? I don't know what you think of that.
Well, no, we don't. It's as simple as that. By their fruits ye shall know them. You judge people not by their words, but by their actions. We've got a terrible system, and we've got to stop shoving our head up the Union Jack and pretending everything's great here when it's not. I mean, that's not what our ancestors did. Don't forget, the Whigs were the Liberals. In those days, it was Whigs versus Tories. So
that's right.
The Tories were the landowners, and the Whigs were all these rich people coming along. I mean, the older system fell apart because of economics, money. You had ordinary people who could open businesses, and they would end up richer than the local gentry. Therefore, the system had to change, and it changed for the better. I mean, what's wrong with British democracy? There isn't one. Will Labour? I haven't noticed the election. I'm sorry. It's the same group of people saying the same things, just sitting in different chairs in a room. I haven't noticed what this election is. I'm waiting for the real election. They've all been to the same schools. They've all been to the same universities. They've all done the same courses. They're all millionaires. They all know each other. They all say the same thing in slightly different ways. What election? What choice? We're deluding ourselves. We're deluding ourselves because British people don't want to think at the minute. And if you don't want to think, these are the realities. These are the consequences. What will happen in 5 years? You're right. In 5 years' time, when everything's gone pear-shaped, there'll be another landslide victory to the Tories, and 5 years after that, when everything's gone pear-shaped again, there'll be another landslide for Labour. It all means nothing, and who's to blame? The electorate. We are to blame. If we don't want to change the system, if we don't want to say, I'm giving a couple of hours a week to think about the way I live and interact with my neighbours, because that's what politics is. It's the way local resources are used and how we all manage to live together. That's what politics is. It's not, you know, I don't know what politics has nothing to do with me. When anyone says that, I just sit there flabbergasted at the total ignorance of that type of statement. You mean if the local police come crashing through your door, which is political, it's still nothing to do with you. If social services aren't working where there's no money, it's nothing to do with you. All that is politics. They are decisions made by representative bodies about money and how it's used. We put those people in those positions. Therefore, who is to blame? Us.
Yes.
If you're not thinking about if you're never thinking about who you're voting for and why, this is what happens. But I mean, the whole thing is we need a more mature system. I mean, if ordinary people were being given the respect they deserve, which they never are, I think the system would naturally correct itself a bit and we take a bit of a step forward. That Farage boy, he needs to be watched. I don't know what I think of him. He says lots of very unpleasant things. And he says lots of unpleasant things which are then completely misunderstood by a lot of his followers. So I don't know. I don't know what happens there. I mean, a perfect example was one of his followers was quoted on the news recently as saying Nigel Farage said illegal immigrants should be shot on the beach. And no, he didn't say that. And he said absolutely nothing like that. But you know, I think that it's funny, but it's not funny at the same time. You know, we've got to keep an eye on him because no one believed he could get Britain out of Europe. He was the architect of that. None of these other people that jumped on the bandwagon. He did that.
Yes.
And now he's challenging the Tory party. He's not challenging Labour. He's challenging the Tories. And he got the support he did because the Tories are disaffected with their own grouping. And you know, we can argue till we're blue in the face about in what way and why. But I mean, that is the reality of what's happened. And that Farage boy strikes me as on the way up. Can he do inside Britain what he did outside Britain? You know, there are two parties, dominant parties nowadays. That doesn't mean there'll only be two dominant parties forever. There wasn't once a couple of 100 years ago. There won't be again. Is he the person that's going to break the system? And is he going to break it in a good way or a bad way? What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, I tell you, when you were saying what you just said, and I was thinking to myself, what part in all this does religion come into play? Church, whatever domination come into play. Do you feel it has now got a part to play in our daily lives? Because we seem to go through a period of time where, well, I still don't think the churches are full, are they? But where almost like nearly everybody was anti-church, anti-religion. But now there seems to be a more of a perhaps leaning towards that. Do you see that religion can play a more dominant part in our daily lives?
Right. I mean, I actually have I mean, don't forget, people think I'm anti-American sometimes. I'm not. I'm certain that the America I love has gone, sadly. You know, dancers going down the president's staircase singing Yankee Doodle Dandy, you know, Hollywood at its great golden age. I mean, all that's gone, sadly. The idea of the American dream, I mean, that seems to be fading away. And what America represented to the world, very, very, very sadly, is now tarnished. That, I take no joy. No one should take any joy in that at all, because once upon a time it was a great light in the world, and it was showing us that life could be better for all of us, not just the people with resources, but all of us. It's a tragedy that is collapsing around our ears, and it is. It is collapsing around our ears. In terms of religion, I've always adopted, as I say, the American attitude that church and state should be separate. In Britain, of course, they are not. We have a state church, the Anglican Church, which has representatives in the House of Lords. Therefore, they make political decisions. Therefore, in one sense, and maybe more than even I want to admit, every local Anglican church is actually a government office. And people still largely need to, go through there to be hatched, matched, and dispatched as a government process. You're born, you get married, you die, and people keep tabs on you. That isn't religion for me. I think, what's religion? Religion is to do with higher powers, healing energies, anomalous phenomena. It's to do with psychotherapy. It's to do with healing. It's to do with much higher things than politics. Religion, I'm against people that are against the R word. It's all well and good to be leading a strong spiritual life, but if your neighbour next door has a heart attack and you don't want to know because you're busy in the lotus position, that doesn't speak much about you as at all. You as a person at all. Religion is the sort of social side. No, religion is the social side of spirituality. Religion, Christianity amazes me. Thousands of years ago, it managed to cut out its own brain. It got rid of the Gnostics. And it just right, in the centuries more recent to ours, it decided to get rid of art and culture. What do you think it was good at? For heaven's sake. And then, of course, it started jettisoning things like counselling and psychotherapy, which, of course, are really practices of the spirit. So there's basically very little left of it at the minute. And when you must remember this, Alan, when I was a young cub, before the days of endless, pointless, mindless, ugly television, the local church would be a community hub. It would be open every night. People learning music on one night, dancing the next night, sports. It was a community hub, and the local vicar would be working his arse off to make sure everybody had space and was accommodated. It was alive, it was happening, and it was offering people real life choices, which TV doesn't. I hope people aren't being as brainwashed against religion as certain people would like them to be. I hope they're turning back in that direction. It's sad if they can't see how useful it is, because it is. And just because your local church and your local minister may not be doing, a grade A job, doesn't mean, again, you throw out the baby with the bathwater. Get up your arse, miss an edition of Coronation Street, and go and wade in yourself and make your local community a better place. Until church can start becoming a community hub again, things won't really get better. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the village that we live in here. And there's two churches. There's the Church of England Church and there's a Methodist Church. And they and we when we moved in there, our next door neighbours, Frank and Mavis, who sadly passed away just over a year ago. The grandson and his partner live there now, so it's still in the family. But they used, that was like churchgoers at the Church of England Church, and they do a monthly parish magazine. And I was talking to, we'd only been here 3 or 4 weeks, so I'd like to have that magazine. So you don't have to. No, I'd like to. We've had it every month ever since, and read what's going on in the village. And it's good to know that there is a lot of good work that goes on there. The actual Church of England Church has different events on in the week for young mothers and all different kinds of events, and bring in the small children. Don't seem to see a lot of activity with the Methodist Church. I'm not saying they don't do anything, but it doesn't seem to get publicised as much. Also in the local community, Essington community thing, so what goes on in the village, he knows what's going on. But it does seem to have kind of a good vibe about it, the village does. And considering we're not far from, some villages are right out in the middle of nowhere. We're a mile from a main town in the one direction, and we're about 2 miles from another major town in the other direction. So we're not actually right out in the woods, but the actual village acts like a village. And I think there's a lot of places are starting to, they've lost that feeling, David.
Have you seen Bigfoot recently? Every time you start talking about in the wilds, I just think of you looking out the window and seeing Bigfoot. Who of course has been seen in Britain, who of course has been seen in Britain as well, but that's a different story. And I mean, right. I mean, part of what I've done in the past has been related to counselling, and I might want to revive that. I don't know yet. Because no one's got time to do everything, but I'm beginning to think that might be an important thing to do. David, put your money where your mouth is. That's a thought at the minute. Certainly, I remember attending St. Peter's in Clapham, which I did for years, an Anglo-Catholic church. In other words, high church. That's what that means.
Yes.
With all the smells and the bells and the beautiful statues and the lovely paintings and the stained glass. I mean, William Morris, the actual William Morris, had donated some of the stained glass to some of their windows. So,
Right.
this artistic treasure in the middle of a small part of town. I mean, I remember speaking to some of the older people years back, and who were going to communion. And there was one older chap that looked nervous every time he went. And I thought, well, I mean, I've been a cleric in various positions for most of my life. Working towards full ordination, yada, yada, yada. And I thought, well, it really behooves me to go and ask him. I'm not in the right position, but maybe if the vicar asked him, it would be the wrong person to ask him. Are you okay about receiving communion? Is everything okay? And so I did. During fellowship after church one time, I took him to the side, and we had a cup of tea together. And I said, I can't help noticing every week you look nervy. Are you okay? And he said to me, this is the only human contact I get every week. And I thought, oh my God.
Wow.
I mean, churches are vital. Another thing, I suppose, when I was more involved in the past in counselling, I mean, some people have real difficulties that are wham bam, thank you, ma'am, society doesn't always understand. You can lose motivation on a clinical level. I don't mean being a lazy bastard. Anyone that knows, I mean, you know me, and anyone that knows this show knows I've no sympathy whatsoever for lazy bastards. However, I have known people in the past that couldn't find the inner motivation to get out of bed. And it was on a clinical level. It wasn't on a lazy level.
Yes.
And I have known people who couldn't find the motivation or the skills to get from their bed to make a cup of tea. It had become impossible to them. That is the sort of person that doesn't need accusation. That's the sort of person that needs love and support and tenderness and kindness. It was actually the church that stepped in to try and do something about that. Even social services, if I'm remembering this incident from years back correctly, they weren't sure what to do because it wasn't really a hard and fast medical issue. You know, there was nothing that could be prescribed. You can't get drugs, you can't get medicines involved. The local GP, if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't sure what to do because this particular person hadn't said they're sort of psychologically impaired. And if you do, of course, all that stuff kicks in, which I seem to remember the GP didn't want to happen because there was no
Yes.
big psychological issue there. It was what in the old days they just said it was a matter of the spirit. You know, that person was on the defensive. That person was protecting themselves in some deep inner way, and they couldn't negotiate with the outer world. Literally, this is where church and church life comes into its own. And without the support of local church people, I don't think that individual would have got through everything. What do you think, Alan?
No, I agree. I was just thinking of a situation many years ago where somebody got in touch with a doctor, like a clinic place, and explained on the phone the problem, and the answer come back was, "Do you really want to open up a case of worms, a box of worms?" And that was a medical person saying that. In other words, they didn't want to go there. So Dan's just said, I can tell everybody to. When Anne was going through a really rough time many years ago, and having panic attacks and that, and it was a Saturday evening, and I I found out there's a place in Wolverhampton called, it's still there, called the Phoenix Centre, and I phoned up and spoke to the doctor, and he said, "Does she really want to open up a can of worms?" He says, "It's best to leave things as they are," and that was the support got from a doctor. I think that, and then we went on a search for a private doctor, and we found one. Sadly, he's retired now, but Nigel, he really helped. He was so understanding, and he helped enormously. But this particular doctor at the NHS just did not want to know. It was really odd, you see, because when we his practice used to be in Wolverhampton, and when we turned up, a beautiful Georgian home, and we saw a couple of figures up on the, just like ground floor 1, 2, so like you got the ground and 2 other floors, and we saw this figure standing in the window. Anyway, we went in and that, and when we went into his surgery, Anne said to Nigel, says, "Seen a lady standing up in the window there. She looked like she was dressed in some kind of Elizabethan clothes or something like that." And he looked startled, and then he said, "Oh yeah," he says, "she used to live there." He said, a lot of people have seen her. So yeah, she's friendly enough." So that was from a doctor who totally understood, believed, because he'd actually witnessed it himself. So when it comes down to it, it's about finding the right person who actually understands. I'm not saying that doctor at the Phoenix Centre um, didn't think that he was trying to help by saying, "Well, just don't go there and you'll be all right," type of thing. But it's strange how different people in the same profession can react to a situation and get two totally different viewpoints about it.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear Anne had those problems. I mean, you both know that anyway. And big
Yeah,
hugs and positive energy and healing energy and all that sort of stuff. No, I mean there are incompetents in every walk of life, sadly. I can probably understand that he's worried about getting social services involved, because of course it would have gone through them. And once that starts, I mean, we've got into such a ridiculous position in this country now that once the machinery starts, it's difficult to stop. So that might have been,
yes, indeed.
That might have been one of his thoughts. Either way, that's completely unacceptable. Because come up with an alternative. Don't just drop the ball. Come up with an alternative. So no, he doesn't wriggle off the hook, because he must know people, and if he doesn't, shame on him, that can help in a different type of way. And I'm really pleased you found a position that could help in those ways. I mean, what distresses me even further from that story is, of course, if you go back not too many years ago, a great many of the clergy were actually trained in counselling and psychology. Where did all that go? I don't like this American model that it's a checklist of an ideology. Do you believe Jesus once stubbed his toe at the marriage of Cain, and you can't be a minister then? I mean, that's not what it's all about. It's about healing. It's about life. It's about light. It's about love. Until there's a certain rapprochement, until there's a re-embracing of counselling and the psychological into its home, its natural home, which is the church, and until the church remembers that it's meant to be one of the architects of local community, it's not this passive receiver of things. It's meant to be going out there and saying, look, we're giving you rooms, we're giving you space, come on down and enjoy yourself, explore, meet different types of people, learn. I mean, one of the great treasures, since I'm on a rant at the minute, of Britain and British church life were the choirs. If you go back before the Second Great War, and I think it really is the Second Great War that stops it, sadly, nearly everyone, if you look at the stats, was involved with a local church choir. So what did that mean? It means they were taught how to read music, they were taught how to play instruments, or they were taught how to sing. And it was a common knowledge across Europe that this was a musical nation because of that. All that's gone.
Yes,
Again,
yes,
what the British are incredibly good at throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and sadly, it's because we take an American lead.
hello.
Yeah, hi,
Hello.
Alan. Yeah, hi.
Hello. Sorry, it just went quiet then.
Yeah, I thought Anne was saying something.
No, she said sort of something. I don't know. She's gone off into the kitchen now.
Right.
What was it, Anne?
Tell them about Nick yesterday, what happened.
About what?
Friday, hitting his shoulder and there was a demon up the corner.
Oh, crikey. Yeah, it's all right. When we, on Friday, when we was at Nick's who does my cars for me, it's his garage. And car. And as I walked back in, and Nick, who does the cars, TJ, who helps him, they were standing there, and Nick was really in, he was seeing difficulty. So what's happened? And there's literally an iron steel bar that's probably about 8 foot high that was standing up properly up against the wall, proper angle and everything. And apparently what happened was nobody was near it, and it suddenly flew at Nick and hit him on the shoulder. It was that lucky. I gave him some healing on his shoulder and it was all right. But it was almost like there's some energy decided that I wanted to have a go at him. It was quite bizarre, David. Quite bizarre.
Well, I mean, you know what I think. These things are actually commonplace. They're happening all the time.
Yeah.
And we're in the middle of a struggle between positive and negative energies. I mean, you two are, we agree on that. We all agree on that 100%. That's why
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the church has to re-embrace these things. I mean, I was talking to William Becker last night on his show. I mean, exorcism, you're an exorcist. That is part of the healing ministry. It's a
Yeah.
sacrament of the church. It's always been
Yes.
recognized by the church as a form of healing, and you're a gifted healer and gifted exorcist. So none of us have ever said those things don't happen. I mean, we've just got to be a bit more gutsy in saying to other parts of the community, look, these things happen. Do we have the answers about everything? No, we don't, but they happen. So we've been put
Yeah.
in a position to be able to do something about it, which is why I think you've got such a formidable future with us, with the OCAC, because I stopped believing that these things are accidental. I mean, I find my head finds it difficult to think that OCAC is my ultimate home, but my heart already knows it's my ultimate home because I can do, and let's see what happens. I mean, but I can ask all those awkward questions I could years ago, and no one in the OC says don't do it. So, and I'm free to pursue my own ministry as you are yours, and nobody says anything apart from we'll pray for you. Let's support each other. Are demonic
I,
energies work in this world in our local communities? Yes, they are. What do you think, Alan?
yeah. Yeah. I just yes, I was just thinking about since we've known each other and you can say our journey together, and in a sense because of your uh, religious background, which goes a lot further and deeper than mine in the respect of being involved with different churches, and I suppose really right up until this point, I followed you. We've been searching you've been the main one searching to find the right place that seems right, and it's like I was guided to go along with what was you were trying to seek to find because it seemed to be the same thing that I was trying to seek to find, and you're the one who approached the OCAC, and it's strange how it's kind of come together because I know you've been involved in lots of churches and you've had quite senior positions in churches, but it's taken quite a while, a good many years, to actually get to where we are now, David.
Oh, again, 100% agreed. The difference between what we've been doing and lots of other people is really simple. We just didn't stop. We didn't give up. Like you and Anne and the
Yeah,
doctor, the GP.
yeah,
You got the wrong response or you got a half-hearted response. You didn't give up. You found somebody else. That's the old British attitude.
yes.
I don't know what the youngsters. I mean, if they miss that nowadays, it's not in them. And that makes me very sad for them. That's the old British spirit. Well, that didn't work, but we still have that aim in mind. We have an aim in mind. Let's go and find somewhere else where it can work. I mean,
I
we
think that
throw away being British at our peril. Now, that should open up a can of worms. What do you think, Evan?
yeah, I was thinking actually that part of being human is to make mistakes. If you're making mistakes because you're trying to do the right thing and it turns out to be the wrong thing, then it's a mistake and you can rectify it. There's a difference between doing the wrong thing, actively doing it knowing that it's wrong, and it doesn't go right. That isn't a mistake. You've created that situation yourself. Whereas if you've been pursuing something that you feel is right and is good, and then it comes to pass that it wasn't what you were intending, yeah, class that as a mistake, and we should learn from it. That's the difference. We should learn from it. It's a bit of a tightrope walk, that one is, though, David, isn't it?
Yeah, but life is a tightrope. It's all about balancing correctly and keeping going. No one ever said things were easy, but would we really want them to be that easy?
Well, I have to say this, right, is that you are, how can I put the word, a trooper, in the sense that you don't give up. And that's proven with the different, on the theatrical side of it. And at the moment, we're coming up, just a month away from the Women in Mayan coming on at the theatre in London. So is that a Jimmy Young link for you to advertise it, David?
That was Jimmy Young at his best. That was Jimmy Young at his best. I was very impressed. Young Alan Cox, very impressed. Yeah, I mean, right. Why am I not better known as a playwright? We've got loads of plays that need to be staged, for the simple reason you can't do it on your tot. You need actors and you need directors to help you out as well. Curiously, all the poetry I've written, and of course I've got 2 volumes to date that have been published, is actually meant to be performed. It's not meant to be read over a cup of tea with your auntie. It's actually meant to be performed. So Women in Mayhem, which is coming up between the 21st and the 25th of August at the Etc. Theatre, is my second play. I mean, I've got others that I want to stage with Vector. It is exploring what it means to be a woman, because that seems to be a question nowadays. It's surrealism, it's humour, it's funny, it's a laugh, it's singing, it's dancing, asking some very deep questions at the same time. So hopefully it's a bit of everything. I think the actors, we had a review of it not too long ago. In other words, we staged one scene. This will be the entire thing. It's world premiere. It's national premiere. Will be during the Camden Fringe Festival. After which I'll have to talk to Victor about where we go from there. But if you want to see something genuinely out of the box, and celebrating women in the world, celebrating the mystery and ministry of women, I think you could do much worse than coming and seeing our production. Cheap at the price. We always try and keep tickets to a minimal cost. It's set in a pub theatre, so if you want a drink, you can have a drink downstairs. You can have a meal downstairs. It's in a pub theatre for the simple reason that there are very few independent theatres left. The Etc. Theatre is one of them. And also, I rather like the idea. It goes all the way back to Shakespeare, that you can go with friends and family and have refreshments and see something interesting at the same time. So all we're doing is trying to revive that a bit. Have a drink downstairs, bring a pint up with you. No one will say no. I mean, so the idea that, I mean, you know what I think? People have tough lives nowadays, and they needn't just sink behind entertainment. If we're all tired at the end of a working week, we don't want Shakespeare. We don't want the highbrow. We want to relax. That's when you veg out on TV. But, that's not everything. If now and again you want to spread your wings and, that sounds interesting, and I might learn a thing or two, I might have some unusual laughs, that's where theatre kicks in. But we want it to be in an environment where ordinary people, the working people of the world, have access, can afford to go and have a good time at the same time. So hopefully we'll have a few bums on seats. I'll be there. I don't know when yet, but
brilliant.
Wish us luck, Alan.
It sounds really good. Yeah, definitely. That goes without saying. That's of course. Well, we've come to that time. We've done our 60-minute stint, and I think we got the internet only played up a little bit. So Johnny's more better behaviour this morning. And anyway, just quickly, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, David, the best way to do that?
For my sins, I'm on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, as they call it nowadays. I've got a website which needs updating. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm easy to get if you just remember David William Parry. How about yourself, Alan?
Yeah, well, my website's understandingspiriit.com, which has just recently been updated, and I can't thank Mitesh Patel enough for his incredible work. That guy he's professional website builder, etc. He's really good. Yeah, I'm on social media. So yeah, I'm about there. My phone numbers and email addresses and everything on the website. So anyway, we've done another week. God willing, hopefully we can do it all again next Sunday, David.
Looking forward
I
to it
just hope
already.
that everybody good, and I hope that everybody has a lovely week. There'll be a lot of people going off on holiday with their children. The children have just broken up from school, so I hope they all have a wonderful time. And God willing, see you next week. So I'll say goodbye for now.